Hi everyone, it's Wednesday, time for Wisdom Wednesday. Hope you all are doing well. So the last several weeks we've talked about hormones, and today I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the things that I've been reading about and listening to. For instance, a couple of weeks ago I finished a book called Metabolical by Robert Lustig, and about our metabolism in the food industry, which piqued my interest. And then this past week I listened to a podcast that Mark Hyman did with Stephanie Seneff, and I'll tell you a little bit about her in just a moment, about glyphosate or Roundup. And that really has kind of gotten my blood boiling, because this is something I've heard about for years and years, but I never really understood how it worked and the breadth and depth of destruction that it has likely led to as far as our health is concerned. And of course, our whole goal here is to create the best possible health that we can. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this interview with Stephanie Seneff. She is an MIT senior research scientist. So this is not something that's way out in left field. This is something that's being studied and being researched by top people in the field. And her book that she recently released is called Toxic Legacy: How the Weed Killer Glyphosate is Destroying Our Health and Environment. Now, I haven't read this book yet, but I'm just starting to share a little bit about what I'm learning about glyphosate and what I kind of gleaned from the interview, but have ordered the book and will read that, and perhaps we can kind of walk through that together in the next few weeks as we continue to peel back the onion and try to glean some knowledge and understanding about what is happening to our food and how perhaps we can do, or perhaps consider things we can do to try to mitigate any of the negative aspects of this. But just to give you a brief history, glyphosate was a chemical that was patented back in 1961 as a pipe cleaner because it bound to metals. And once it washed out of metal pipes, they realized that it would kill weeds. And so Monsanto in 1969 patented it as a weed killer. And then in 1974, it finally began to roll out here in the United States. And it really wasn't until the late 90s that engineered crops such as genetically modified corn and soy were then Roundup ready, meaning they could spray this on and it would not kill crops, but only weeds. And as of this time, over 9 billion kilograms of this product have been used globally, 20% of which has been used in the United States, yet we only have 4% of the population. Now this is interesting because Mark Hyman during this interview talked about the fact that he had gone to get a urinary glyphosate level done and found that he was in the 50th percentile. And he said he was very surprised by this because he really tries to eat cleanly. So this is ubiquitous. We all are exposed and have been exposed and probably continue to be exposed, no matter how well we try to manage the food substances that we eat. It's just very difficult to get away from it. But when we're exposed to this can kill off a lot of the normal bacteria, particularly the lactobacillus and bifidobacterium that we have in our gut. And by killing off a lot of this bacteria, it increases our risk for leaky gut. And this allows then proteins or peptides from toxins and bacteria, as well as food peptides, to leak into the system and interact with our immune system. And this can create systemic inflammation. And we know inflammation is what leads to a lot of our chronic illnesses. This increases our risk for diabetes, obesity. It's thought to be also increasing risk for autism and certain types of cancers. So really, how does this happen? What is it that this chemical can do that has such profound effects across the board, not only to our environment, but to our health? And just a brief little overview. Basically, what this does, this chemical inhibits a plant enzyme that is involved in a pathway called the shikimate pathway, and this inhibits the ability of synthesis of certain aromatic amino acids. Now, amino acids are the protein building blocks that we have, and there are 20 of them, some of which we can make in ourselves and some of which are called essential amino acids. And in particular, these are aromatic amino acids are phenylalanine, tyrosine, and tryptophan. Now, many of you may have heard of tryptophan in particular, or maybe all of these. Tryptophan is important in the production of serotonin and melatonin, tyrosine for thyroid hormone, and phenylalanine and tyrosine for dopamine as well. All of these are very important not only for neurochemistry, neurotransmitters, but also for thyroid production. So if we're exposed, this also can affect the bacteria in our gut. So plants and certain bacteria have this shikimate pathway, and it can produce these, it inhibits the production of these amino acids, which are really important. You know, 70, 80, 90% of our serotonin is made in our gut, and if we don't have tryptophan, then we really cannot make this, which is really disturbing. And understanding that we're having increased risk of autoimmune disorders because of the inflammatory actions of leaky gut, and what role this might play in all of that is particularly concerning as well as interesting. At the end of the day, what we know recently about this particular chemical is that Bayer, who now owns Monsanto, has set aside $9.6 billion to settle around 125,000 existing claims and lawsuits against this particular product, alleging that it caused non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So that's probably just the beginning, and we are seeing more and more countries beginning to eliminate this or prohibit its use, and as such, nothing has happened yet in our country, but it's hopeful. We're all hopeful that perhaps we will see some shutdown of productivity as well as usage. Each state has some limitations already, and we're starting to see that. But over the next several weeks, I want to walk through this so that maybe you'll have some understanding that there are things environmentally that are affecting our health and our wellness. So I just want to leave it there today, and we will pick that up next week and walk through a little bit more about glyphosate and how it can affect our health as well as the environment. Hope you all have a great week, and we'll visit again next week.